German, Italian, Czech, or Czech Slavonic. Even more, we have 2 incunables that survived till now only in 1 copy, or at least 1 copy is known. One of them is Regula Cancellaria by Pope Alexander VI that was published in Rome in 1495. The second one that my colleagues identified recently is Articule Znemovny that was published in Prague in 1497. The only known information about this book was that its location was unknown from 1820. It was not described in the Incunabula short title catalog, ISTC, by British Library. So, of course, these numbers are important, but they are just plain facts, and for visitors, the more interesting thing very often is nice binding, funny hand drawings, or illustrations. Specialists who work with text very often would prefer modern editions. Only people with some special interest would ask for a concrete 15th century book. One of these special interests could be ownership research and the question how these books printed in the 15th century in Western Europe found their way to the Wróblewski library. I only want to remind that our library was established in 1912, and its founder, Tadeusz Wróblewski, started collecting books in 1890, approximately 400 years after the birth of incunables. There are not so many early provenance inscriptions in the incunables from our collection. But what we can say that not all of them were from nowadays Lithuania or Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Some of them were from Eastern Prussia. But with the partitions of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and later political events, natural development of libraries, especially institutional libraries, was disturbed. The books lost their owners. Some were taken to other libraries, others ended in private collections, and all these changes continued for nearly 150 years until the books were transferred to the Wróblewski library. So now I'll speak about the books whose destinies were influenced by political events that started some 200 years ago. The earliest political event that can be seen as the one that had the impact to our incunables is related to the Basilian order. This monastic order of the Greek Catholics was based in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania since 1617. Before the third partition of the Commonwealth, it had over 95 monasteries. In the 4th decade of the 19th century, Tsarist authorities, with the help of the former Uniate Bishop Józef Semashka, forcibly put the Basilian order back under the rule of the Orthodox Church. We have some books that once belonged to 2 Basilian monasteries, Žirovice and Wilno. According to Semashka's plans, the library of the Žirovice monastery had to become part of the priest seminary in the same monastery that was established in 1828. In 1839, the Žirovice Basilian monastery was dissolved, and its seminary eventually in 1845 removed to Vilnius, to the former Basilian monastery of the Holy Trinity. Now it was the place of the Lithuanian Orthodox priest seminary. Wróblewski library has 4 incunables from Žirovice. 2 of them were published here in Krakow in Czech Slavonic. Orologium that you can see here, and Triocvetnaya that was published in 1493. 1 more in Italian, Della Cristiana Religione by Marsilio Ficino, and Latin Bible. Most of the books from the Žirovice monastery are very easy to recognize. They wrote their shelf marks at the beginning and at the end of the book, as you can see here. And nearly always they wrote a text that the book was inscribed in the catalog of the library. Here you can see an example of such inscription, 1 word in 1 page. There are some books, not incunables, where we see that somebody tried to cut inscription, but shelf marks still exist, and also missing bottom parts in so many pages are a very recognizable provenance of the former owner. You can see that how many pages they use for just 1 sentence. And here also you can see figures of Orthodox Priest Seminary. 6 editions in 2 volumes from the Lithuanian Orthodox Priest Seminary also belong to the Basilian Monastery of the Holy Trinity in Vilnius. They simply were incorporated into the seminary's library after it was transferred to Vilnius. But Tsarist authorities also abolished more than a half of the Catholic monasteries in the territory of Lithuania. All these monasteries had ancient traditions and owned sizable libraries. The libraries of the closed-down monasteries were handed over to education institutions, to the Orthodox clergy and monasteries, Vilnius Public Library. The most valuable books were transferred to the Department of Other Faiths in St. Petersburg or secular schools, other institutions of Roman Empire. Even though the transfer of the books was supposed to follow a certain procedure, it often didn't work. Books kept getting lost, or lists about them were incomplete or missing. Some books also disappeared or were bought by privates. In our collection, we have only one book that belonged to the Catholic monastery, that is Hortus Sanitatis, published in Strasbourg in 1499. This book belonged to the monastery of the Congregation of the Mission in Vilnius. 7 incunables from this monastery are known until now. 6 of them are in the Vilnius University Library. Here they were transferred after the dissolution of the monastery in 1844. As you can see, our copy has inscription Ex Libris Congregationis Domus Vilnensis. It is at the very top at the left. It is interesting to find that the scribe made a mistake. He forgot to name the congregation. The longest version of the inscription that we can find in other books would sound Ex Libris Congregationis Missionis Domus Vilnensis Montis Sanctissimis Salvatoris. The monastery was closed in 1844. We find no information about this book until the beginning of the 20th century. Since then, Hortus Sanitatis belonged to the library of the Society of Museum of Science and Art, Towarzystwo Muzeum Nauki i Sztuki w Wilnie, that was established in 1907 and later to the Society of Science Fellows. The beginning of the collections of the Society of the Museum of Science and Art Library is related to Antony Tiškevič, who donated to the Society 107 old and rare books and some manuscripts. We have 3 incunables from these 107 books. Visa Superinstitutiones by Henricus de Piro, published in Köln around 1481. Sermones Thesauri Novi de Tempore by Petrus de Palude, published in Strasbourg in 1484, and Processus Judiciarius by Johannes de Auerbach, published in Leipzig in 1489. There are 6 other incunables from the society in our library, mainly religious, such as sermons or Bible. One of them I have just mentioned. Society of the Museum of Science and Art was active only for 7 years and had no residents. It had not enough people to take care of its collections. It was given only 1 room in the palace of Klementina Tiškevičova. Nowadays, this is the building of the Wróblewski Library. For these reasons, the library of the Towarzystwo Muzeum Nauki i Sztuki in 1914 was given to the Society of Science Fellows. So this happened not directly because of the war, but the closing of it happened during World War I. Towarzystwo Przyjaciół Nauk was active much longer. There were difficulties and sometimes illegal, but it managed to stay active during World War I and even enrich its library. Later, during interwar period, it acquired even more various documents. Before World War II, it had about 120,000 books and 20,000 duplicates, many manuscripts, etc. From October 27, 1939, when Vilnius was returned to Lithuania, all Polish organizations were announced officially non-existing. In 1940, it was nationalized and temporarily given to the National Culture Museum in Kaunas. Same year later, it was given to the Institute in Lithuanistics, and at the beginning of 1941, to the newly established Academy of Sciences of Lithuanian Soviet Socialist Republic. There were many tries to reestablish some kind of Polish institution, some Institute of Polish Culture based on former society, but members of it were not allowed to do that. Some of its collections were stolen or disappeared, Advent of the war, most part of them were given to various institutions such as National Art Museum, National Archives, and Central Library of the Academy of Sciences of Lithuania. 33 incunables are known that belong to them, and they are now in the collections of two libraries, Wróblewski's library and National Library of Lithuania. Wróblewski library has 12 of them, and here you can see one of the examples. Some of them, we could now say, that are not very interesting because we were abound and all the provenances were lost. So now we can only identify recent history of these books, only the owners of the 20th century are known. More libraries owners were not able to take care of the collections during World War II. One such was the Vilnius community of evangelical reformers or Calvinists. The Library of Evangelical Reformed Synod of Vilnius, which had its origin in the 16th century, was managed by the Evangelical Reformed Consistory of Vilnius. It was dissolved in January 1940, and the Church Paris requested Lithuanian Academy of Sciences to take care of the library. We had 5 incunables at that time. The Synod Library was then left on its former premises. Unluckily, many of the documents were lost, stolen, or destroyed during war times and afterwards. The rest was moved to the repositories of the Library of Academy of Sciences. It should be noted that these new arrivals didn't include any incunable. It is unclear whether these books were really destroyed during the war or the present location is simply unknown. After the end of World War II, the holdings of Lithuanian libraries were replenished by documents from the libraries of Eastern Prussia and the Klaipėda region. Lithuanian researchers gained the permission from the Soviet authorities to enter the territory of Eastern Prussia and to rescue valuable books and manuscripts left there. The first team of researchers was sent to Königsberg in September 1945. The team was composed of 2 pairs of scientists, each from Moscow and Vilnius. The Lithuanian participants were Povilas Pakarklis and Jonas Kruopas. In December of the same year, a much more numerous Lithuanian team went to this area for further investigation. Such missions were carried out several more times, last time in the summer of 1947. A number of the documents were brought to Lithuania by truck or by train. The Wróblewski library from these expeditions has in its holding 34 editions in 14 volumes. Among them, there is one unique edition, Regula Cancellaria by Pope Alexander VI, formerly owned by the famous Wallenrod Library in Königsberg, which purchased this book on 9th of August in 1729. Thanks to the expeditions, previously separated parts of the collected editions of sermons of Augustine of Hippo were finally brought to the same city. In the 16th century, this book belonged to Alexandras Rodunionis, Lutheran priest and Lithuanian writer, that bought these sermons while studying at the Königsberg University. In the 18th century, this copy came into hands of 2 owners. The first 5 parts of sermons collection belonged to a few owners in Lithuania, Jesuits, Bernardites, and at the end to the Vilnius University Library. The last 2 parts remained in Königsberg, ending up in the Wallenrod Library. After World War II, they were brought to Vilnius and are currently held in the Wróblewski Library. These are not all the institutions that could have been mentioned in this presentation. Very big part of our 66 incunables in one or another way were victims of political events. Without the history, we would not be able to explain many changes of the owners and the ways how the books ended in one or another institution. Also, we understand that we will not be able to reconstruct these lost libraries without the catalogs, because we know about some incunables that disappeared, but how many of them were lost and we know nothing about them. We must only be glad that incunables that were rescued are now in safe place, library, and can be not only accessible to the readers, but also the former owners are not forgotten. The stories show how easily political events can change natural development of libraries and destroy what was created through centuries. And just two more sentences, that this book, it's not incunable, but it was rescued from Königsberg. This is a volume of 6 editions of 18th century, but I thought that for this topic is maybe the best book. Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo.